Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Salmons, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Joanne Archbold, founder and principal consultant of Livy Consulting, a boutique historical research and storytelling consultancy that helps companies, media producers, families and organisations turn history and heritage into narrative, connection and engagement. With a PhD in Canadian political and military history, plus experience in heritage media, corporate marketing and public speaking, Joanne bridges deep architect research with real-world brand building. Whether you're a founder, creative producer, or legacy-minded entrepreneur, that conversations will show your history might be your business hidden superpower. Joanne, welcome to Founders Future. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Olivia. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here and such a pleasure to be speaking with you. So I'm excited to dive in and learn a little bit more about your journey. So walk me through. Typically, I do like to start at the beginning. So do you mind taking me back to what it was that you was doing before you started up Livy Consulting? And then from there, what was the motivation behind it?
Absolutely, yes. So I have loved history since I was a little girl. I'm one of those people that actually remembers falling in love with the subject in grade 4. We were studying medieval times. I became obsessed from a young age, and it's been my passion ever since. I went to school for history. I studied history in my undergraduate degree, in my master's degree, and I then worked in history for many years. I worked for a small Canadian not-for-profit called Historica Canada, making heritage minutes, which are 60-second commercials about Canadian history, people, events, things happening, and the goal was really to engage Canadians in their history and help it be a bit more easy to understand and a little bit more engaging. I left that job and went to work in marketing for a major Canadian law firm, which I really enjoyed, but missed the history so much, and then realized I need to do this forever. I need to find a way to make this my full-time career. And part of that decision was also grounded in the fact that I had a huge health crisis. I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 25 years old on November 27th. And that really changed the way I saw life and wanted to make sure I took every day that I used to take for granted and now do not, and work towards building a career I'm really proud of and in an industry I think is super important. So I left the law firm and went back to do my PhD, which for some people might have seemed a bit like an interesting decision because I left a full-time, well-paying job to go back to school on a student salary. But for me, it made sense because I was A, following my passion, and B, I had this thought in mind of, okay, I can develop a consultancy that will be my full-time job and will allow me to work in history. I had done some research before I did the PhD and saw that there wasn't really a business that did this. There's a couple of historical consulting firms in North America that do this kind of work, but in different industries, so a bit more government related or a bit more government adjacent work. And I didn't really see anyone working specifically in the media landscape that I thought I could step into that role. And I built the business very slowly over time through the PhD, first as a supplemental source of income for myself, and mostly through word of mouth marketing, working with people who I've worked with before or I knew from different areas of life. But then the goal was and has been to work full time in the business since I've completed the PhD earlier this year, and that's where I'm at. And it's had lots of interesting twists and turns, which I know we'll get into, but that's the foundational story of how the business got started.
Amazing. My first question is, how was that jump from obviously working as a historian to then going into marketing? Was there like a correlation between that, or is it just, I need to move on from this and see where it takes me?
It's interesting because I find history and comms and marketing are actually very aligned in a lot of ways. Their key motivator is storytelling. How do we engage people in the story of this historical event or thing or person or this product or thing that someone could buy or use or sell? So there is a lot of overlap between history skills and marketing and comm skills.
Right.
So I saw that connection quite quickly, and I've seen other mentors use that connection very well in terms of history as storytelling, history as speech writing, history being infused in people's marketing. And so I really wanted to capitalize on that connection. And now my work, I used to, as I mentioned, really try and focus on film and media companies. I've shifted that work to be a lot more within this marketing space in the last year because, first of all, for Canada, for the Canadian listeners, you will be aware of the fact that there's a lot of geopolitical tension in North America, and many Canadian businesses were really looking for a way to distinguish themselves from their very otherwise similar American counterparts.
Yeah.
And that was a space in which I felt like I could move into and sort in terms of helping those businesses stand out in a very crowded field and use their heritage as a way to have that unique piece of the puzzle that helped them to stand out, especially in the Canadian economy. So that's
Yeah.
where I tried to shift that niche towards a bit more corporate company focus and then helping them to achieve their goals, speak to their audience, engage their audience in a new way by using their heritage, which is unique to them.
That's so cool. And then, so let's dive into that a little bit more then. So we mentioned there's obviously been a recent pivot or shift in the ICP. So who would you say is your ideal customer at this point? And then from there, how is it you help them and how do you support them through the journey?
So my ideal customer really is any business who has history or wants to use their history in an interesting way. So it's really open-ended. I don't like to put I only work with X business because I really think that any business can benefit from my offering. Specifically, I've worked and I have done that. I've worked for not-for-profits, I've worked for big national Canadian corporations and everyone in between.
Nice.
I do think that the audience for these businesses, or for, sorry, starting that again. I think for me, the most important way in which I can appeal is by helping businesses understand the importance of their history and see the way in which they can leverage it better in their marketing. And so that's my pitch to them. And where I solve a problem is, hey, you have this stuff. Maybe it's sitting
Yeah.
in boxes. Maybe it's, at a storage facility somewhere and you haven't thought about how you can use it. And I understand. Listen, for people who are not, I also don't like going through boxes of old stuff that's mine and I'm not paying attention to it. I don't want to think about it. It's sometimes hard to get motivated to do that. But my
Yeah.
initial goal is to convince people to say, hey, actually, this is really valuable. It gives you a unique angle or lens in your industry. And I'd love to get in there and help you turn those boxes into whatever it is that you want. So that could be
Yeah.
a lobby display. It could be a marketing campaign on social media. It could be a series of LinkedIn posts about on this day in our history. It could be you have a big partners meeting and you want me to come in and talk about the business history and explain to your employees, your partners,
Yeah.
why understanding where the business has been is important to where the business is going. So
Yes.
the offerings are very diverse. I really tailor my offering to whatever the business wants in terms of the specific audience they're looking to engage. But that audience could really be anyone. And
Yeah.
I'm really interested in working with any business who sees the potential in their heritage. And a lot of my marketing is to those people, but also to business. I'm hoping to knock on the doors of businesses who don't necessarily see the value in their heritage and change their mind.
Yeah. And I suppose it must be an untapped, as you say, an untapped area because not a lot of people will go through those boxes of history and be like, we can use this for the future because it's just a very different story to relate in their heads. And I suppose from there as well, you can also see the patterns of how the marketing might have adapted from the history of the company and move forward and how that will shape the future of the company as well. And very,
There's great data
yeah.
points in there too. Absolutely. You make a great point there. There's really valuable understanding that can come from going through those boxes to see how their marketing has evolved and to even how their business has evolved. And one of the other angles I pitch is most businesses today have on their website or wherever a values list. We do our business is guided by the following company values or even a mission statement. And one of the ways I pitch to them is, have you lived up to that?
Yeah.
Let me go to your historical offsite boxes and I can find or show you ways in which you have done so. Or perhaps where you've maybe fallen short a little bit and you need some motivation to move towards that goal. And I think that's a really interesting way to engage your client base because you can say, hey, we've been advocating for sustainability and environmental protections since the 70s or before it was on most companies' radars or whatever the value might be. There's really great ways to leverage that, which you've
Yeah.
already sketched out for your business, your guiding principles, your values. I can then take that one step further for you and say, here's how you've done that actually for 50 years or 100 years or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Yeah, backing up the integrity that they've had for that period of time, which is incredible. And to say from the start to the end. And so I'm curious to find out as well then how you go about acquiring your customers for yourself. So like in terms of a marketing standpoint, how do you go about outreach and finding people? What channels and methods are you finding most effective?
Great question. And I've done two things, and this is also an area in which I'm looking to expand. First, I've done a lot of work through people who I've known before, so my own personal network of contacts. And I always say to young people coming through school, networking is really vital. I know it's a scary word and people don't often like to talk about it, and sometimes it can be awkward, but developing a really strong personal network is a really valuable tool for any entrepreneur, for anyone in business. And I also find it quite rewarding to then be on the other side of that person's networking and help other people. I think it goes a long way to work together with your network and support each other. So a lot has been through my personal network. Second, I worked with a marketing professional to help me really hone my voice on LinkedIn. I've done a lot of work on LinkedIn developing a thought leadership space for business leaders to come to see some of the work I've done. And I found that also to be quite rewarding and interesting. It's a space that business leaders use, and I have now started to use to develop my own personal brand for me, but also for my business and showcase what Livy Consulting can do for businesses in the wider in Canada,
Mm.
but also in globally. It is also a space where I feel like I need to continue to grow. I have a plan to potentially hire a couple of business students in co-op programs across Canada to help me do a lot more of that targeted research. I'd love to spend time with them and ask them to target specific sectors and do research into what businesses I should be reaching out to because that outreach of personal outreach from me to businesses has been very rare and only when I have the time to do it. And as I'm sure most entrepreneurs will know, the time is really the biggest hurdle. So I need to start to outsource and have some people help me with that outreach and doing the detailed research into who specifically we should do that outreach to, what industries, and how to approach them. So that's my next step in terms of marketing is get more into that personal outreach to people.
Yeah, so alleviating some of the time from your hands and the hats as well. Because I'm imagining, obviously, the type of companies you were describing earlier on, they may not have, you have to go and search them because they may not have history behind them just from based on their profiles. You have to do a lot of deep digging and just making sure there is archives that you can go into before you even approach to work with somebody.
Yes, absolutely. And some of the biggest companies, as I mean, speaking from a Canadian perspective, do have historians attached to them. So, for example, some of our big banks, they all have historians attached to them already. So they don't really need me so much
Yeah.
because they have someone already. So I'm really looking at businesses who don't have already an attached historian or consultant like me to do that work. And so that just requires a little bit of searching and figuring out what industries don't have and need the support. Some heritage businesses also do already have great histories done. That's not to say I couldn't do a different one or another one, but understanding where there's space and there is tons of space. I just have to have some help in terms of making sure
Yeah.
that I'm not doubling up in terms of what other people are doing.
100%. And then I suppose off the back of that as well, would you ever consider running any form of like advertisements on LinkedIn and just increasing your brand awareness and like outreach that way as well, helping them come to you rather than doing most of it yourself?
That is absolutely on the horizon for
Yeah.
Livy Consulting. Hopefully January 2026, we're going to start to run some ads and some content, potentially even branching out into some other platforms as well. LinkedIn has been really the bread and butter, but I suspect my plan is to definitely have some advertising done there and then also potentially some other spots as well.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's also wise as well, just having many avenues of which people can come in. Us ourselves, we run a lot across Meta, which works very well because a lot of people spend most of their time across Meta, whether it's Instagram or Facebook. Amazing. And then, so Joanne, what are your plans like for the team moving forward as well? Are you looking to maybe scale it and have a couple other people on board? What is your vision moving forward for the next year?
Yes, so for the next year, I want to bring on a few students to help with this targeted research and outreach. That's the main goal for the scaling for next year. But my dream really is to be able to be the hub for historians in Canada and eventually globally, because I know how deeply the academic system is struggling right now, having just gone through it. I have 8 brilliant scholars alone in my one cohort of PhD students at my one university. And the stats now in Canada, and I'm sure around the world, are 1 in 10 PhDs get an academic job, which is just, that's too bad because there's all these brilliant people graduating and they have nowhere to go and they have this huge passion for history like I do and want to be able to share it with a wider audience. And so my dream is to be able to hire as many historians as I possibly can to help do this kind of work and
Yeah.
have them have an outlet to share that love of history and to engage in a subject that they're super passionate about and also very skilled at working in terms of research, archives, writing briefs, all these kinds of things. So ultimately that's the goal, is to be a place where people can with advanced history degrees come and work and feel like they're providing a really valuable service to
Yeah.
Canadian and global businesses that allows them to work in their passion, because I'm working in my passion and it motivates me every day. And I want to be able to provide that for other history students and other history academics.
Beautiful. Yeah, just helping the sector because it must be as well. I don't know if I was thinking about it as you were speaking. I'm not sure if like it's one of those where AI may be able to come in and affect the historian sector as well and start replacing a lot of jobs as you come out of your graduate degree. It will be a lot harder. So just having that outreach and increasing the sector must is going to be amazing moving forward. Where are
Yeah,
you finding the biggest
AI,
challenge?
sorry to just jump in there because
Yeah.
AI, I'm glad you brought it up. It's an interesting question because every sector is dealing with AI and how do we manage it? There are hugely beneficial ways in which the history community can use AI. I will caution that oftentimes ChatGPT and other softwares like it are incorrect in terms of their facts. So be careful if you're doing that on your own without a historical background or a way to critically examine those facts. But one way that AI cannot actually replace a historian is because a lot of archives are physical things. They're physical documents in boxes that are not anywhere on the internet. Until they come up with a robot that can go in and out of those boxes and scan everything, they're going to need historians are not going to be obsolete. Archives are a unique space that until they're all completely digitized and searchable, also some archives are digitized, but you can't search them, so you can't, there's no
Yeah.
like control find or whatever for an AI for AI to get in there and actually scan the document. There is going to be space. This is a space in which AI cannot get into right now. I'm sure it will find a way, but for
No.
now, it's a space in which we need humans and we need people to who are able to actually go into these documents and critically evaluate the value of them and think of a creative way to put them together in something like an Instagram platform. So the expertise there is A, getting into the boxes, B, finding the important pieces, C, putting the important pieces together in a cohesive narrative that makes sense, and then D, applying that cohesive narrative to a platform or way in which to share that narrative with the audience of the business. So there's a multi-step process there that AI is helpful but can't do it all.
Can't replace you fully, no. And I even think we will get to that point where even if there's robots there, history is a very protected subject, in my opinion, anyway, because it is so tangible. You do have to go and touch things, you have to move things around, you have to go and
Mhm.
find things. There's a reason for it. So, in terms of moving forward and scaling, where are you finding the biggest challenge for yourself in achieving those goals?
The biggest challenge is probably time and fear.
Yeah.
Time because as I mentioned, I just don't have the time to do everything myself. So I know I need to hire,
Yeah.
but it's just me. So it's that first step as an entrepreneur and having spoken to other women and who I work with in a little entrepreneur group, that first step of hiring someone new is always scary because it's just been my work
Yeah.
and it's just scary. But I think like everything in business, you have to learn how to do it a little bit scared and figure out the way through. And there is always a way through, but just navigating that and making sure that I hire the right people and hire the right people to fit within the business I've built and to have the same passion and interests as me in terms of working in history and business. But that's really the biggest challenge, is making sure that scaling piece happens and then The next challenge after that will be, okay, hopefully I'm inundated with work, which would be great. And then the next challenge will be then contracting and hiring out
Yeah.
other historians to help me do the work. So that's a two-step process I see, and just managing the cash flow and the what's the other word I'm looking for? Oh my goodness. The cash flow and just the time of the growing of the business, I
Yeah.
guess, is really the
Yeah,
big things.
I get it. And it is scary because it is your baby and you will put a lot into it. It's a lot of work. And if it doesn't work out, I can understand the fear behind it. It's just finding that trust in somebody to help
Yeah,
protect and nourish the baby moving forward as well.
exactly.
Amazing. And Joanne, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your incredible journey and insight with us. Where can our listeners reach out to work with you or connect with you if they would like to?
It was a pleasure to speak with you too, Olivia. Thank you for having me. My business website is www.livyconsulting.ca, and you can all find me on LinkedIn. It's Joanne Archbold, PhD. I would love to connect with you. I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you pop up into my LinkedIn. Feel free to ask questions on any of my posts or message me. I am on LinkedIn all of the time, and it's the best place to get in contact with me.
Amazing. Joanne Archbold. Is it Dr. Joanne Archbold or just Joanne Archbold across LinkedIn?
It's not doctor on
Doc-
LinkedIn. No, it's just Joanne
Joanne.
Archbold, PhD on LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm just trying
Beautiful.
to, that choice was, yeah.
Put it back on. I love it. Amazing. And thank you again for joining us. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please do not forget to go and check out Joanne and all the amazing work that she's doing. And do not forget to subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you're really looking to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to hop on a call with one of our team and discover how we went from zero to $30 million per year in less than 3 years. But until then, keep on climbing and we will see you on the next one. Ciao.